Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop and the F-14. Well, since the last video, I got all the top portions of the fuselage molded up. You can see both of them looming up over there in the corner. Came out here this morning. Well, past few days I've been making Airex templates and cutting out all the core material for the bottom of the fuselage. Then I trimmed out the gear door moldings I showed y'all earlier. And then instead of, we kind of had an epiphany after I showed you guys the free coat mold, or the free coat mold release, and how I was just putting it straight on the glass. Instead of doing that on these gear doors, I actually just took some of that aluminum ductwork tape, covered the back of it, and then applied the mold release directly to that. I kind of expect those speed brakes to be stuck in that top molding, and then possibly the bottom fuselage mold as well. But hopefully they'll pop out. If not, they're kind of sacrificial anyway, and I can make new ones. So got all these Airex parts cut out. I've already done the left side of the nacelle. You can see that one's kind of been thermoformed a little bit. This is kind of like where the strut door would go on the back of the fuselage. And then there's this big piece that is the lower portion of the outside left nacelle. And you can see how it's got kind of a nice curve to it the whole way. And there's no slit marks in it like this one and like I did the nose gear door. It's kind of, when I was doing this one, I was kind of playing around with it and figured out a little trick that may or may not work on a really tight compound curve. It worked out really well on this part because it's fairly shallow, and then the back part and it's a little sharper up here towards the inlet, but that's neither here nor there. So in this video, what I was going to do is show you guys how go about height or heat forming, or whatever you want to call this Airex core material to the shape you want. Because as you see now, you kind of push it in there and it just pops itself back out. So all you need, some magnets. These are just some, I think these are 1/2 or 3/8 rare earth magnets. Of course, you need your core material, your mold. I've got a glove just for a little bit extra protection from the heat gun, which is the last thing you'll need. So the rare earth magnets, I just throw one on the core material, one on the back side of the mold. I just do this in a couple of spots. Once you get the core material in roughly the correct spot, just throw your magnets on there. The magnets are just going to help hold it in place. And then starting with, well, wherever really you want to start. I try to start it with a fairly small radius curve. That way it's just a little easier to form in there. Just take your heat gun, get it nice and hot. Press your finger by the curve. Let me zoom in for y'all. While the heat gun warms up again. You can see now, you let go and it just pops this place out. So just press down on it, take your heat gun, and just sit there and hit it. And the stuff, it will kind of start to discolor to a brown color. It doesn't really hurt the foam. I try not to get to discolor too much. It just kind of depends on how sharp the curve is. But then just hit it in a spot, let it cool off. Hit it here in another spot, let it cool off. And as it cools off, when I get further along, I'll start putting my other finger there to help hold it in that radius, because it'll kind of want to like curve back on itself. And then just move your way all the way down through there until you're done. This is just a regular monocoque heat gun. There's nothing spectacular about this special. It's not like a heat gun you see at Home Depot or anything. You don't really need it. You can use it if you got it. You just got to be a little careful that you don't burn the stuff. buddy. Again, I'm just working my way down the line here until you get to the end. This stuff will actually get into some pretty tight corners, which is what's kind of surprising about it. It's very easy to work with. Just about all of that part. Back here and put it back, there we go. You can see my template's just a little off back here, so again, another thing that works really well with this is you can actually kind of bend it to where it gives you a bump in the stuff. Just hold your fingers here, heat up the bump. This one you got to discard a good bit, and then take a popsicle stick that's got a bow in it, put the bow side down, and then just hold it and let it cool off. This is what I figured out on that bottom piece of the left of the cell, that you could actually get it to conform this well. This stuff kind of like shrinks on itself, almost like monocoat. Pretty impressive how well this stuff works. And then, when I go, you can see there's still a little bit of a bump there, but it's a lot better than it was. And that's, you can probably, we'll heat it up again and we'll see how it comes out. You never know, I might get it to go completely away. Out for you guys. Alright, and there we have that piece. Pretty simple to work with. Then take this off, just take the magnets back off. And there's that piece, all nice and formed, ready to go when we get ready to do that leg up. The next one's a little bit more tricky because there's a whole lot of compound curves. The side of the fuselage curves in, to the bottom curve, and there's a whole bunch of curves going on. So this one's really difficult to get in here and get working. That's why there's so many slits on the other side. We'll see if we can't get rid of some of those slits. So first thing I do on this one is I pick a point to start working from. In this case, I'm going to use this vertical wall in the corner in it. And I'm just going to take my two fingers, in this case my thumb and one of my others, and just bridge in here, and then just hit in between them with heat until it sits there and just softens up enough to where it'll actually go into where you want it. Again, pull out some magnets to help hold it in place. These magnets are a little on the weak side, so stronger ones would be better. I think these are 10 or 15 pound magnets, maybe 5, I can't remember. The stronger the better when you're doing this stuff. Alright, same thing, I'm just going to take my fingers, kind of make a bridge, and work my way back along the curve in the fuselage, letting it cool off between each one. a couple of passes, I have to stop it with my glove cool off. It gets a little warm. Alright, so there's that one. Again, you saw I worked my whole way across. You got a whole bunch of little ripples down here along the bottom. Try to zoom in, give you guys a couple here, all along the back side of it. So, once again, magnets. In this case, this time I'm going to get the back portion of it back here lined up to where I want it to go. And I'll throw a couple of magnets in here in the along the rest of it. And then we'll start working on the front section here. Again, same thing, just put your fingers in there, heat it up, let it kind of fall into the gap or into the curve. And kind of let it cool after a couple. You can see the waves in this portion of it get pretty dang big. That's why I have all those slits on the other side. We'll see if we can get rid of some of those slits or make them smaller or just less of them in general. I still think you'll have to have one or two. Very complex fuselage to have to mold. Curves in every direction, it seems there's nothing straight. Something like a stealth fighter probably a lot easier though. Then up in these areas where it gets to be kind of a straight 90 or whatever, you can just grab the two corners of it like so and just squeeze them in. This stuff, even before you heat it up, is pretty pliable. So you can just sit there and grab the edges, squeeze them into the corner, hit heat, hold it, and it'll just about go in that corner perfectly. It won't make a perfect 90 degrees, so you just have to put a little bit of a spooge mixture in there. But it does a pretty good job getting in there. Alright, so there's that piece roughed up, or rough shaped, whatever you want to call it. Once again, more magnets. Just throw more and more magnets on this thing to help hold it. It's kind of like T-pins when you're building a boss model. The more the better. Or the more the easier it is to hold stuff in place. Hey, buddy. My helper has arrived. Just in time for him to go to bed. What? lots of magnets. So what we'll start doing is we'll work on the smaller of the waves here in the foam, such as these two here. And we'll just heat it up. And you can see how that's done, how it's got the bow to it. I put it so put it down like this so the dip goes towards it, and then you have to press down in the edges so it kind of goes like that to hold it in place. It puts some pressure down in the center. Put the scissors down, buddy.
Ow. What number?
Hey. Helper's running off for tools he shouldn't have. Slow me down, man. Anyway, see, that took a good bit of that one out. Let's see how it does on some of these other ones here. Hopefully you guys can see what all's going on. I know this isn't the easiest thing to see from that perspective, but I can't really put the camera down where you can see what I'm seeing, because then I won't be able to see. If I can get this to work out without having all those slits in it, what I'll probably do is I'll probably redo that other side, because the slits work, but it looks amateur-ish. But if they have to be there, they got to be there. But the way this is going, I might be able to get away with only having one slit or so, and that would be in the gear door area, which would definitely make it look a lot nicer from the inside. What, buddy? Yeah, I see you. Alright, now we got this one big one right here that you guys can see real well. See how good that'll come out. The templates for these parts were kept a little oversized on purpose, just because I knew all this shaping was going to be a little difficult, and I wasn't quite sure how much it was going to kind of grow or shrink in the process. I kept them a little large just for this reason. But pretty much all the rest of my templates are pretty much right on the money. The Airex shifts a little bit when you're bagging it and everything, so you will have a little bit of overhanging flanges, and then trim the flanges. Just use a really sharp wood chisel and put a lot of care in making sure that I don't gouge the mold flange. Alright, so that one came out pretty good. It opened up down here a little bit, which, considering how big that one was down here, that's no problem. We'll sit here and heat this up over here, and then we'll try and get rid of that one. It's just a matter of working this stuff out a little bit at a time. See, this is a long, tedious process of getting this thing to fit. That's why composite airplanes probably cost so much. These Airex parts for just the bottom of the fuselage is about 2 days of work to get the templates and then the actual foam part out. The reason why it takes, or the reason why it took me so long, so I'm basically doing 3 of everything. I just take some real thin brown kind of like wrapping paper, but it's almost the consistency of like notebook paper, maybe even a little thinner, and it comes on a roll about 10 inches wide and 25 feet long or whatever. But I'll take that and I'll make a paper template of the part. Like this particular part was first a paper template, and I don't really worry about all the slits and getting it to conform. I just push it into the curvature of the part, go along with a pin on the corner of the edges of the mold, and I do that the whole length of it. So you end up with a part that's a little oversized still. And then you take that, you take some 3M77 spray adhesive, spray that on your plastic, you put the paper part down, and then you cut the plastic template out. And then after that, then you get the plastic template cut out and the edges smooth and all. Then you take that and you use that to actually cut out your Airex part. So it's a 3-step process for one piece, and when there's 12 parts for just the bottom fuselage and another another 14 parts for the top. I mean, now you're 26 parts and it's about 10 to 15 minutes per part to do that. So I mean, you do the math, it takes a while. And then you do all this on top of it. Alright, so this part fits fairly well. It's still got some waves to it, but you push it down and it sits really flat. The top parts up here, you can see there's still some pretty heavy waves. What I'm going to do is, since it's pretty much shaped as it is, and it's a little oversized in a couple areas, I'm going to take a regular X-Acto knife, and then from the back side, I'm going to be very careful not to cut through the foam into my finger. And I'm just basically scoring the foam at the moment. I'm not cutting all the way through it. If I do cut all the way through it, go on there real quick, it might come out a few choice words. I'm also being very careful not to scratch the primer in the mold. This is something that realistically should be done before you paint the molds on your primer. But since I was in such a hurry, I just decided I'd go ahead and paint them. Way back in, I think it was July I did that. So my plan is to have this fuselage molded by the end of the month. And for a couple that are a little voiceful in their opinion on the lack of building and just the progress updates, be patient. There's not a whole lot of building going on right now in your eyes, because honestly, there's not a whole lot of building going on. I mean, I don't think y'all want to sit here and look at a video 2 hours long of me doing a layup when basically it's just slopping epoxy around and putting a piece of cloth down, putting some more epoxy on, more cloth, just back and forth, back and forth. I mean, you can see that on Bob's videos all you want. There's a couple of my videos. Once you see how you put epoxy and fiberglass down, you don't need to see it 100 times. It's not going to change a whole lot. So be patient. Once this fuselage is molded, there's going to be a whole lot of building for you, because I've still got a lot of plugs to make. I got to do the center wing spar, that goes from one pivot point to the other for the fuselage. I gotta build the mold, the plug and the mold for that. Then I gotta mold that thing. That's a pretty hefty piece of machinery in and of itself, the way I've got it designed up. That's gonna be basically a hollow box. Wrong way. It's gonna be just a rectangular box, but it's gonna follow the contour of the top of the fuselage. And the fuselage is gonna make up the four side of the box, the top skin wheel. That's why you see that there's a huge strip of carbon fiber on the top of the fuselage, which I'll show you guys here in a bit. But that huge strip of carbon fiber, along with the core material and all that, then the fiberglass, I mean the whole way up at the top of the fuselage in that carbon fiber box. That's your wing spar for the fuselage from side to side. That's what's going to join the two. There's no. It's not going to be some aluminum box bolted to a pair of bulkheads where your bolts are in shear. The bolts on my design are going to be more in tension than anything, because it's going to be 5 bolts holding it. 5 bolts holding an aluminum pivot bracket on either side. I believe I showed you guys that pivot bracket in a previous video. So there's going to be 2 of those per plane, and then that carbon box is 1/4 inch thick. Yeah, you heard me right, 1/4 inch. That's what I've done all the CAD work on, all the design and the stress studies of it. And that 1/4 inch thick box will support 800 pounds of force per bolting flange for those pivot brackets. And then the pivot brackets are also a 1/4 inch thick per flange, and they will support about 1,600 pounds of force before they start to yield or fail. So I mean, 800 pounds, 1,600 pounds, the weak link's going to be the wing. It's not going to be the carry-through structure. I've seen too many carry-through structures that look like something you see in a plastic model, not a 75-pound RC jet with 2 turbines in it. So this one is going to be extremely over-engineered in that aspect, but so is the real one. I mean, the real one, the thing would go down in a ball of flames and out would come out. The only thing that would come out would be that center carry-through structure and the pivot mechanism. I mean, that whole box thing on the real one was a tank. And it was probably done like that for a reason. So in my thinking, if it worked on the full scale, downsize it to realistic margins on the model, and it should work just as well. Alright, so there's that piece. See, it's got some waves to it still. What we can try before my little helper has a conniption fit. What do you want? You want down? You want to play with it? Time out here, fellas. Alright. What we'll do is we'll heat this back up and just put on a flat piece of the flat table here and see if we can't get these waves to disappear a little bit. It may or may not work. We'll find out. This stuff cools off pretty quick too, so you'll know pretty soon if it's going to work or not. The other thing we might try doing is applying some heat to the opposite side. Seeing if that does anything. It might take the curve back out, you never know. Yeah, it didn't really do anything. Well, it's just something we'll have to live with on this one. Alright, so there's both of those pieces. And then the bottom portion here. See, it's a really big piece of Airex. It goes the whole length up the side of the inlet ramps and everything. So I won't bore you fellas and gentlemen or ladies or whoever's out there with doing this piece. But when I get ready to start doing some layups, I'll pop the video out for these things. These should take me about an hour and a half or so to do on each one. But I'll pop the video out and I'll show you guys some swapping epoxy around. Anyways, y'all have a good one.